Okay, everybody, good morning. I think it's mostly morning for everybody in Europe, at least. So welcome to the November user group. This morning, we're going to cover two topics: the new plan creation wizard and the research outputs feature, which we have discussed before, but it's time to review it again. So this morning's program, I have put it online you will see the agenda in our Google document that I have put in, I put the link in the chat. So we're going to start with a brief introduction, going to go to the plan creation wizard. We're going to stop for questions, and we're going to have a coffee break at 10 past 11. 10-minute coffee break. We can make it longer if you feel it's getting too much. At 11:20, we're going to start the research outputs chat, the talk about research outputs. We can then have another discussion. I'll allow plenty of time for that because you may want to ask more questions. And then a quick summary and close. We've allowed an hour and a half, but if we go faster, then I presume that's a bonus for everybody. Okay, so you may want to find out about the latest developments. As we discussed the last time, our priorities for the tool are updating the backend and the infrastructure on which the tool relies, as well as moving towards machine actionable data management plans. So as expected, in the latest version 4.0, we've worked mostly on upgrades, and it's been moved from Ruby 2.6 to Ruby 2.7.6, and then we've also upgraded Rails 5 to Rails 6. In DMPonline, we're planning to release this beginning the 21st of November. I'm going to, as mentioned before, we're going to communicate an exact date, but the upgrade is going to be done outside working hours so that we can have minimum impact on you and your users. Okay, for the end user, what is in the latest update for the end user? It's improvements to downloads. For example, they can include all contributors now. For administrators, we have the ability to modify download settings so that you can set, for example, the ability to download the plan cover sheet by default. Yes, you can switch it on or off. Many of you have mentioned that you want to see that. Some people don't particularly want it. Some people want it, but it's a tick box on off. You administrators can decide what the policy for your institution will be. We've also done several bug fixes. There were some outstanding fixes for the APIs. There's a list of things that have been updated, which you can find on the roadmap release. I've inserted the link here. I'm hoping at the end of this presentation, I'm also going to put it in the chat. I just wanted to mention again the forthcoming events. So on the January event, last time we spoke, we didn't have a date, so it's now going to be on the 24th. We tried to move it to 3 p.m. and keep it shorter. Now, this is not going to be great for most people on the continent. It's already quite late in the day, but the reason why I've moved this late in the afternoon is to enable people, the wider roadmap team, to join. And I've made a mistake in the presentation. I apologize. We won't be discussing plan versioning. We'll be discussing we will be discussing plan versioning, sorry. And I hope that in advance of the meeting, we will circulate a spec. for you to review so that we can have an interactive chat during the meeting. So I'm sorry if this won't suit some of you, the later time in the day, but I hope, we will record the meeting as ever, and those people who can't join will see the recording. You can ask meetings, you can you can ask questions in advance of the meeting, and you can also send questions after the meeting, because I'm aware that 3 p.m., which is 4 p.m. for 4 p.m. CET, might not suit many people. It's kind of late in the day. But I hope you appreciate that we will have the participation of the wider DMP roadmap team. We will have the people from CDL California, those who manage the DMP tool, and we will also have the team from Canada. We are now waiting we're also planning an event on the 20th of March, 2023. And this is going to be a co-located event with the Research Data Alliance plenary. We were hoping to have confirmation by now that our application has been successful, because we submit an application for RDA co-located events. But there's been a delay, and I'm hoping that they will confirm this. We were told they will confirm this on the 18th of November. So hopefully we'll hear later this week, and I'll let you know as soon as I can. This is going to be a hybrid event, so we will have the opportunity to meet in person, which is, I think nice. It's a bonus. The event is going to take place in Göttingen. I've said this before, in Sweden. And I hope it's a good location for people to travel. But again, as a hybrid event, you will be able to join remotely if you don't have the opportunity, if you don't have the time or the funds to travel. We will cover a variety of topics. We will retake the topic of planned versioning. We will go again over machine actionable DMPs, releases, developments. I will send an agenda as soon as we have had confirmation that we can actually join the, it has been, the co-located event has been confirmed. And next up, as we're going to move on to the new Plan Creation Wizard. It's going to be mostly a talk. I hope to actually be able to do a quick presentation on the test server so that you can actually see the difference for real. And this can be followed by questions and a coffee break. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to talk through screenshots initially, but if I get a chance, I'll also give you a quick presentation of the new Plan Creation Wizard online. Okay, so this morning's presentation, Martha Nicholson was meant to give the presentation. We worked together in it, we even rehearsed it, and unfortunately she fell ill. So I'm going to give it for her. Okay, so why we are trying to revise the Plan Creation Wizard? So the first thing is to make it easier for users to select the appropriate template for their plan. So I just want to emphasize that this is basically the main reason, to select the appropriate template. At the moment, the page we have for creating a new plan seems to focus more on entering administrative information, or at least it seems to the user that we're asking them to enter the information, to enter the funder, to select the organization, select a funder, and it feels more like entering administrative information, which is what the plan overview page is for, rather than actually selecting the template. We also want to make the template selection process more transparent. So, by that I mean is that we're making the user aware what templates are available to them. We're offering them a list based on your organization and the funder you have selected or not, as the case may be. The following templates are available to you. And overall, of course, as ever, we're trying to improve usability. Okay, so creating a plan, the current procedure is the template the user selects is available. It's based on a combination of the user's organization and funder. I think you're all aware of this. Many users have an organization already selected, others don't, others have selected other. So if you are, for example, a user from, let's say, Digital Curation Center, you have already entered the Digital Curation Center template, because based on your organization, that's what you're going to be offered. If you select a funder, then you're going to be offered the funder template, but it's not obvious to you what template you have selected. You just enter these two options, and the user kind of guesses what template may be available. At the moment, there are three options. You select the default template. If your organization is other, by default template would mean the Digital Curation Center template. You select an institutional template if you have an organization, a subscribing organization. If you belong to a subscribing organization that has created a template, or you select the funder template if your project is already funded or you are applying for funding. So these are the three possible options. I hope I'm making sense. As I said, I'm going to try to give a quick demo of what I mean. So I think I've included some screenshots here to show you what the procedure is. So user selects, enters the title of the project, selects a primary research organization. In this case, I belong to the Digital Curation Center, and it's already entered it. And if at this stage, if you look at the screenshot on the left-hand side of your screen, if at this stage I don't select a funder, I can create a plan just based on my Digital Curation Center template. If you look at the screenshot on the right-hand side of your screen, you see if I tick no funder associated with the plans, it is at this stage, it is at this stage that I am offered the option to see which DMP template would you like to use. That's when I'm being asked, and I'm offered a template, a menu of templates. And on this screenshot, I belong to the University of Edinburgh, and they've offered me one of their templates. I can click on the drop-down list, and I think the University of Edinburgh has got about 2 templates. And I will select one of those 2. So issues with the current procedures, as I said, it is not immediately obvious to the user what template they are choosing or why, really. The choice of primary organization pretty much limits the selection of templates. There are more templates out there, more funder templates, which you should be able to see. And if you don't click that button of, as in previous slide, of selecting the, saying that you don't have a funder, you don't even get to see your institutional templates. So it's a kind of blind selection process. It's not clear to the user what the logic is there, really, when we need to make that a bit clearer. Some users don't like this idea of clicking that no funder associated with this plan. The reason they don't like the idea, I think, is because many users are creating this plan, data management plan, precisely because they are applying for funding. And they just don't like the idea no funder is associated. They're planning funding. They're creating this project for a funder, really, the data management plan. And it's just that unpleasant thing that you have to tick a box, which you're not sure even applies to you. And I think that is what makes some users reluctant to nervous about clicking no funder is associated with this plan, because in the long run, that's their whole purpose. They want a funder associated with the plan. So in the new plan creation wizard, it will be exactly the same. We will have a template. Template selection will still be based on this combination of the user's organization and what funder they have selected. But we will reward the page to make it clear to the user that these are actually filters. These two selections, organization and funder, act like filters that offer you a menu of templates. If you select them or not select them, they will be in effect like a search. They will narrow down onto the most appropriate template for you. We will also have to reward the page to make it obvious to the user that actually these two are filters, and the templates. This page is about selecting the best template for you. It's not about entering organization or funder, really. You're only entering these as filters. There will always be on the page a matching templates field, and it will always be available on display. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment. I hope you can see these screenshots. I'm sorry if they're not particularly big. So what I mean by the matching DMP template, you see it here at the very bottom. So people select these two, organization and funder, and then the matching templates field offers a drop-down menu of templates based on the selections made. So as you can see, that the change is kind of minimal to the user. I'm going to go back a couple of slides and compare this with, it's essentially this slide with which DMP template would you like to use, rewarded, to matching DMPs and always on display. Whereas in the previous slide, that which template would you like to choose, it's only visible if people have selected, excuse me, if people have selected no funder associated with this project. Maybe I'm going a bit too fast. Okay. We anticipate this new procedure will be deployed in the first quarter of 2023. That's where we'd like to do it. I've given you a link to the roadmap issue 2337. Perhaps if one of my colleagues could enter this issue, because it is available to everybody for to see, and it is also the discussion there maybe will make it clearer who was involved and what issues were addressed. Okay, I'm going to ask for questions, but before I ask for questions, if I could do a quick demo, I hope you're all happy with that. This is on our test server. So I've hit create plan, and what research project are you planning? Some test project. Okay, and I now belong to the University of Edinburgh, and I can add a funder or I cannot add a funder, but based on this selection, let me just add a funder. I can say no funder associated. I can add a HRC. Let me see if he picks it up. Arts and Humanities Research Council. And based on these selections, I have the AHRC data management plan, and the two default plans from the University of Edinburgh and the DCC template. This is the best choice based on the two selections I have made of funder and organizations. And this will always be available on the screen. let me select the template. I'm going to select the template for postgraduates, and I'm going to do create a plan. I think the University of Edinburgh is not going to be very, very pleased to see yet another test project. So I'm going to have to go and delete this really fast. So this is the procedure. As far as the user will see, as far as the user is concerned, I'm going to take questions in a moment, Petra. I'm aware you got your hands raised. As far as the user is concerned, the change is minimal. It's just I don't think it's going to cause a lot of issues, but of course we want to test it, which is why we're proposing to deploy it sometime in the first quarter of the new year. There are releases due in December, February, and April. It depends how much time we have to do testing in January. We're going to grab some users. Going to grab some users who haven't seen the tool at all, and some users, current users, users who have created plans, and see how they each behave, which procedure they prefer. Okay, I'm not going to do a demonstration of the current procedure because you're all familiar with it, but by comparison, you know how that works. Let me know if you want me to. Let me see what it says in the chat. It's the primary funding organization. Yeah, I'm gonna look at that. So let me stop sharing the screen so that I can see you all, and we can start taking questions. So I don't know who was the first with the questions. Petra, I'm aware that you're staying with your hands up, so go ahead.
Yeah, just to be sure, if I understand you and Glenys correctly, at the LMC in Leiden, we log in with our institutional credentials. So that means that the LMC is the primary research organization. Mm-hmm. Would it then be in the new procedure that if they don't fill in any funder, that they will automatically get the LMC template?
Yeah, it's the current scenario for now. I mean, they will get LMC templates offered, mm-hmm. and they will also get, for example, the digital curation center, the default digital curation center offered.
Because what we have now is that people have to tick the no funder associated to get the LMC template, which is really confusing. So if this changes that and that we will have automatically the LMC template, I will be really happy.
Yeah, yeah.
That is exactly the purpose of the plan creation wizard, the new way of doing it. So we're glad to hear that.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Diana, you are muted now.
Sorry, I'm really sorry. Okay, so there is a morning science. So Petra, that was the same question that we just answered. And Glenys has answered this. Carmen, in the primary research organization, University of Lausanne funds the research project. Would it be possible to add the university as the primary funding organization? You mean as to add it as a funder? Carmen, perhaps you can unmute yourself and talk.
Yes, hi. Yes, hi, yes, a primary funder, because, for example, we have half of our research projects who are funded by the university and not a national funder, and we have the situation which is a little bit confusing for people because they are filling the organization metadata, which is University of Lausanne, but they don't have the how how do you say that? It's a little bit confusing for them because University of Lausanne is a funder for them.
I think this has been mentioned before.
Status than the national funder, for example.
So you don't have a national funder?
We have a national funder, but in Switzerland we have the majority of the universities who are themselves funders.
Right. So organizations are both funders and
Yes.
This would involve having the organization as a funder as well, which means that I think we'd have to enter it in the funders table as well. So I want to say that this might be a conversation that we need to have, continue having this conversation, because we need to discuss if you're okay with your organization being a funder on the tool, because that's the only way that we can have your university be a funder as well. Choose your university as the primary research organization and also as a funder, which means that it would be a different sort of setting. So if it's all right, we can, I think I'll make a note of this and we can continue having this conversation.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries. I see a question in the chat and also a hand raised. I'm not sure which one to go with first. All right, is having multiple options in the drop-down menu not confusing as well? It implies that the funder accepts all these templates, which is not always the case. All right, well, I see what you mean, Irene. Sorry, this is a question from the chat, and this is about having multiple templates available in the dropdown, and the funder might not accept all these templates. What we plan to do is add a little bit of text to make it clear that these are funder templates and these are institutional templates. If it's not clear already, we're hoping that that'll make the distinction that it requires. Do you think that that is enough, or is something more required? Because this is definitely something that we are designing as we go. So if you think that it requires more than just a sort of description to say that this is not a funder template or this is a funder template, please let us know. Joaquim, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I don't think that use case from University of Lausanne is a special case. I think it's a common interest among many. We have in our local template a place to put another place at the end of the template where to put the funder name, and there it's possible to put Stockholm University. And I mean, for most PhD students, for example, the funding is from the university who hired them to do this. So this is an essential interest, I believe, for many universities.
Well, actually, then that's very good to know. Thank you for bringing that up. Since we are working on redesigning this, I think it's good to know that there are different sort of requirements that we can make a note of and hopefully add to the new design. So yes, it's definitely noted, and we will have a solution for it. Yes.
Yes, there's also, I just wanted to point out, can you hear me? Yeah, I just also wanted to point out that DMP Assistant in Canada also has this issue. They, for example, don't use funders at all on their organization. They only have organizations precisely for this reason. Okay, so there is a question from Chris Gibson. If a funder mandates their own DMP template and the user selects that specific funder, then DMPonline only present the relevant funder template.
I'm not sure I understand the
No.
question.
Chris, do you wanna speak?
Hi, Diana. Yeah, thanks
Hi.
very much. Yeah, so when you did the demonstration,
Yeah.
the user selects the funder, and it looked to me that in that case it was AHRC.
Yeah, it happened. Yeah.
And it looked to me that then the templates that the user was presented wasn't only the AHRC template, but also the university's own templates as well. And I wonder if that's the case, would that create a problem? Because if it's an AHRC mandates the use of their template, and it has to be submitted as part of the grant application. So if the user was presented with AHRC and the university template, and they chose to use the university template, then the grant application would be knocked back because they've used the wrong template.
I mean, it could be an issue, but I think if users were presented with the AHRC template, I anticipate that they would select the right template. You could argue that perhaps we're being over optimistic, but if they have selected a combination of organization and funder and they are offered with a template, they are most likely to use the AHRC template. As I said, it's just act as filters that select that offers a menu of templates.
Yeah, I think I would hope that's the case, but I think I'm flagging that it requires the researcher to understand that a funder, if a funder mandates a template, then they must use it. And it's not always clear, especially with people doing interdisciplinary research, they may be applying to a funder that they don't normally go to. And they might think, oh, I've got a choice here. I can use whichever one I want. And actually, if they were to use the university template, then that would be the end of their grant application and an awful lot of time and effort lost.
Yes.
The researcher really needs to know this, and that there's no guidance beyond, well, hopefully they would be diligent and be advised in the right way, but I'm just flagging that if people are given too many options, they might select the wrong option. And it would be great if the tool could filter them down the right channel to avoid any errors.
Yes, that is a concern. As I said, we'll carry out testing and see how users behave. But yeah, I appreciate the concern. We're going to have to take the last question because we're going through our coffee break. Mark, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I was a little late. Thank you.
No, don't worry.
The problem of choosing the right template, if presented with also the institutional template where you've selected a funder, wouldn't that be solved if you could flag only those funders where you want your own templates to also appear? Because we, for instance, here in the Netherlands, we have a couple of major funders like NWO and ZonneB, and we've, I think most universities have come to an arrangement with those funders and submitted a specific template from the institute, and as long as it's certified by those two funders, the researchers can use these alternative university templates instead of the funder templates. If you could just flag somehow those funders where you have an agreement with, then that would solve it, because those institutional templates would only appear where you flagged it.
I know what you mean. NWO operates somewhat differently. So universities in the UK have customized funder templates. NWO have chosen a different route. In universities create an NWO style template. They own it, but NWO approves it. it is an institutional template that is offered to people and say, you know, based on your selection, you've selected University X, here's the NWO template. It is somewhat different. So yes, I think institutions will be offered only, you know, either the customized template or the NWO style certified approved template. But yeah, I recognize Joachim's concern about having a menu of templates offered based on those two filters. Yeah, we'll have to look into that. Okay, I'm just going to stop because, yeah, I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to quickly say thank you to Laura Standard and Nicholas Frank from UGent, who suggested a new workflow and campaign for it. The Dutch Research Council, NWO, actually, they are the ones who put forward this a suggestion for this kind of workflow as well, because they use a different model. Thomas Kisselbach from UMIA, he came with a lot of new suggestions. I'm sure I'm missing many people, because over the years, many of you have suggested a review of the template selection procedure. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to have to allow a 10-minute break for coffee, and I'll see you all at 11:28. Okay, so this is our last presentation today, and this is about the research outputs feature. I understand that, I mean, I remember, because I was present at the meeting, that we went through this first, we went through this before, I think it was around about this time last year, I think. If perhaps earlier this year, I don't know, but it received a lukewarm, you know, approval. Sorry, what are people saying? All right, so this is, okay, sorry, I'll look at this later. So it received some kind of approval, but I don't understand why we never went forward with it, because it is a good feature. Sorry about this, it's presentation. Okay, right, so I'm going to give you another overview of this research outputs feature. I'm going to give you a live demo so that you can see how it works. It's not, in my opinion, it's relatively good, and I think we should make use of it, because we're moving towards machine actionable data management plans. We constantly get you know, requests for smarter and cleverer statistics, for speaking the same language as the Research Data Alliance, you know, data schema. Everybody wants more intelligent data management plans that use well-established procedures out there, that link to, you know, metadata repositories, to you know, repositories of repositories, and all sorts of you know, live fields, machine actionable fields. So I think since this is already available, we should take it and implement it. Okay. So what does the research outputs feature do? It doesn't change the workflow in any way. What people can do is add additional information, mostly about any outputs associated with their plans, which is typically data. So you enter data types, you enter, you indicate whether there's a lot of sensitive data in your output. You enter information about licenses, metadata standards used in your research, and repositories. Sorry about this. Okay. Sorry, I'm just having problem with clicking on the next slide. Okay. So the key benefits, I don't need to list them again. We want machine actionable fields. We want to use the same language established out there with the RDA metadata schema, for example. We want to link to systems such as the registry of data repositories and data site. Overall, people want to establish a digital object identifiers and embed them in the data management plans that researchers create. And this, I get the impression that most of this is wanted not just for statistics, but just to establish good research data management practices within the institution to make researchers aware that they have to use these tools. Okay, how I'm going to, I could go through a series of screenshots, but I think I'm going to stop here and add and do a live demo. I'm just going to start that essentially it's another tab within the data management plan. That's all it boils down to. The data management plans are not going to change, or the procedure on how you create a new data management plan isn't going to change. So let me stop here. Okay. Okay, I hope everybody can see the screen. So this is a sample data management plan, and I'm going to, you can see that I've clicked on the research outputs tab, and I've already created one research output. So far, I just want to mention here that so far we haven't had too many researchers complaining about having to create two plans for the same project. There was one who came out rather irate fashion and said, you know, this project of mine is going to have 20 data sets. Do you expect me to create 20 data management plans for the same project? And I said, no, no, no. We have something coming to solve your problem. So I have to get back to this researcher with good news, hopefully early in the new year. So I'm going to now add the research output. Excuse me. So the type, initially they have to select a data type. This, I understand, are settings selected from data site. They are not any odd standard, and these are the types of data they use. I can send these this type of information to you. I can send screenshots. I can send a link. At the moment, this is only available on our DMPonline development server. So I'm afraid you can't log in and look at it, but I can send you the types so that you can have a think about whether these cover your needs. However, we wouldn't want to customize them too much because we want to use existing standards. So I'm going to select a data set. And the good point here is that you can also add an abbreviation if you want. So people can, instead of entering a lengthy name, they can do my dataset 1, dataset 2, dataset 20. Okay, I'm not going to add a description. This is where you can indicate whether there is sensitive data or personally identifiable information. I'm aware that perhaps we should have tooltips that explain what this is. This one does, this one doesn't. It's still work in progress. And I have a list of usability issues that I have to put on roadmap. Again, the definition of sensitive versus personally identifiable is something that RDA has set, and we have to comply with it if possible. It's not that we have to comply with it, but ideally we should follow the same language. So I'm going to say that it contains some personally identifiable information. Now, if I'm to add a repository, there is a list of repositories. This field is a machine actionable field that talks to a list of repositories. I think it's called, okay, Registry of Research Data Repository, and it goes something like RE3 data name. I'm going to try and put the links into the chat so that you can find them. Let me see if I can grab the link here. This is the in the chat. This is it. Okay, possibly this is familiar to most of you. Okay, so you select a subject area, and again, the subject areas are as listed in the repositories. Ideally, it shouldn't be changed. So I'm going to, I don't know, select what? Construction engineering, I quite like constructing things. Select a repository type. Again, these are descriptions that appear in the repository, and we have in the RE3 data. And we have tooltips to select what we mean by generalist and so on. This is where I think you could do better and perhaps start offering a drop-down list already. If people want to enter a search term like I did earlier, they can. Most researchers would kind of know the repositories they want to head for, but I'm going to apply filter, and as you can see, I'm going to have a long list of repositories. Actually, this was not too long. It's humanities that gave me a very long list. So if you're an construction engineer, it's a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to select this. I can select actually 2 repositories if I want. So that's it. I'm going to close. And as you can see, I have 2 repositories where I can put this on, and I can remove it if I've made a mistake or I don't want to. Metadata standards. This is the RDA metadata standards catalog, as in metadata about metadata, if you see what I mean. So you can select. You can start by typing, I don't know, Dublin. I searched Dublin earlier, and I'm going to apply filters, and I'm just gonna again going to get I could get a relatively long choice, but in this case I'm not, so I'm going to apply open air, close. So this one comes, I'm going to put a link, okay, metadata. Okay, in the chat so that you can see where it comes from. I can see your question. Case. Go back to the screen. I hope you can still see it. I'm sorry if I'm moving a bit too fast. I think we're running a bit late because of my technical problems with sharing screens earlier. So people can enter a start date or whatever, an initial access level. Again, these are descriptions that we used by RDA data schema, but we could do with adding tooltips to see what this means, what's embargoed versus restricted. I'm just going to select restricted just for the sake of, just for demonstration. And I'm going to have to select an initial license. Now, again, we could do tooltips to see what the licenses are. I'm going to select one, but the user has the option here to choose a license. I still think that perhaps we could benefit from simple tooltips here, but at least there is a link to point them in the right direction. Again, I would argue that many researchers would kind of know about the licenses and what kind of licenses they want. This one comes from the SPDX license registry, so I'm going to copy that link as well, in case you're not familiar with this. I believe most of you are. I'm not a librarian. Okay. Okay, And you can add anticipated file size. Sorry, there's a bit of a problem here with this field. As I said, I'm raising usability issues for the DMP roadmap team to fix. But I'm just going to add, I don't know, random gigabytes. Okay. And that's it. I can do save. As you can see, I now have two data sets added to this project, and I can add an awful lot more if I want to. Now, what are issues I anticipate with this? Well, as well as having to fix one or two usability issues, like adding a bit more help and other issues like that, I think we will also have to speak to funders, because some funders in their templates also expect a narrative about data sets. They have asked specifically these kinds of questions. And when you submit your plan, you know, they expect a full explanation of the data sets you produce. I still think that research outputs is a good way of adding you know, information, coming back to the plan and adding succinct information that can build statistics and links to machine, you know, through machine actionable fields, links to important information repositories, metadata standards. And it's a good way of bringing researchers back to review their plans. Whereas using the template, it's perhaps something that people use earlier on at the stage of perhaps applying for funding. And they're expected to write a bit of a narrative at that stage. They haven't had perhaps all of their data sets fully thought through. So I don't think it will conflict quite so much. I don't think researchers will be too unhappy about having to enter this information at an early stage, when funders ask them to do it, and at a later stage where they have clearer in their minds what kinds of types of data they will produce. As you can see, none of those fields were mandatory in there. It's a matter of establishing procedures within your university that encourages researchers to go back and enter this information, go back to their plan and enter this information, always review their plans and make use of this tool to add further information about you know, where their project is, or which stage it is, prior to funding, during funding, after funding. And I think the research outputs feature is a good way of doing that. Okay, so let me stop sharing that screen. Sorry? Yeah. So as I said, the next steps will be to, there are a few new features coming. One of the features is to enable administrators to set preferred repositories, which would appear on the, I presume you're still seeing my screen about research outputs. Yeah. When people create research outputs, if you have preferred repositories that can be listed here, for example. But that feature is under kind of a development. It's the same with preferred licenses. You would be able to add a list of licenses, because this licenses, as you saw, is quite technical information. Perhaps researchers could benefit from seeing a selection underneath with some tooltip describing what it is. And in the meantime, what we have to do is to carry out tests and improve usability, because there were one or two snags in there. And again, we're hoping to release this feature early in 2023. So I'm going to now stop and give you the opportunity. I'm going to keep the screen shared and give you the opportunity to ask questions. So let me see what questions were here. Has anybody got their hand up? No?
We've got one hand up. Mark, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. On the one hand,
Chris.
I think it's a good idea to have some built-in features like research output provides with some extra options that make it easier to fill in the necessary information. On the other hand, at the moment, it looks a bit like a duplicate feature because many of the questions that are put in there are also in our DMP templates. So if you're for a researcher, it seems like, okay, do I need to fill this in again? Because I already did it in my template. So that's one thing. It would be maybe, I don't know if that's possible. It would be convenient if the questions that are in the research output could somehow be copied into the template. So the information wouldn't be duplicate. So we can leave out some of the questions in our DMP's templates, knowing that what's in the research output would be copied to the eventual DMP.
Just a moment. Are you suggesting that perhaps we should edit templates to remove the questions that are already in research outputs? That would be the obvious route. Is that what you mean, Mark?
Well, no, not really.
No?
It's kind of, well, like I said, the information that you provide in the research output is something you already do in your template.
Yeah.
So answering the questions in the research output would be duplicate information because you already put that information in your template.
I appreciate that. So are you suggesting we edit the template, or are you suggesting what was your solution?
Well, the solution could be that if the research output has a feature that says, okay, copy this information at some point, certain specific point in the template when so required, and then stipulate where it is copied. For instance, if it's something about metadata, have it copied to a section on metadata. So you can avoid duplicating information as a researcher. So you don't.
You mean the questions about research outputs? So the ones that you see in research outputs, for example, metadata, you want them entered in the template. So you want the metadata field, for example, to be inserted in the template at the appropriate points. Select metadata here.
Something like that. But it's going to be difficult because everybody has their own templates, different structured, different level of detail. Specifically for us, we have a lot of detail and a lot of guidance on those details because we want to have the researchers really think about a lot of aspects that are related to the items in the research output. And for instance, if you're indicating stuff like metadata, at the moment, the research output, I think, only indicates metadata options at the dataset level, but you have it on different levels. Also, metadata documentation within a dataset on what's in there, how it's structured, what are the elements, some information on the research, and also how to reuse certain elements of what's in the dataset. So those are all kinds of metadata items, which are, of course, not in there. So there's different levels.
Yes, there are a variety of data types that you can insert. So yeah, you can select a variety of it's not metadata just at data set level. You can select you can select a different type to add metadata, and as I also pointed out, you can select several metadata. But
so I see the usefulness of it. I see the usefulness of it. Only at the moment, it's duplicate information because it's already in our template. So if a researcher asks, should I do this? At the moment, my reply would be no, because you're already doing it in the template. Only if the information you provide in the research output is somehow immediately become available in our templates, then I would say yes, do it. Otherwise, I would say no, because it would be extra work.
So it's essentially extra work for the researcher.
Yes.
Would it bother you as an org admin?
Yes, at the moment, yes, it would bother me.
It would bother you because the duplication for the researcher is not exactly user friendly. I mean, it's
True,
nice
and
to
also you missed the guidance you can provide with the templates. You can only provide general guidance, but not specific guidance for specific templates. So it's kind of okay, but yeah, at the moment it's duplicate stuff. But so far, I think maybe we should reconsider some stuff and let other people ask questions. Let's just simmer it, let it simmer a bit.
Okay, Chris?
Hi, thanks, Diana. So I'd like to raise an issue, but also suggest a solution. I've had a conversation about this feature with my colleagues, and we're all in agreement at this end. Before going live with this feature, we think it's really important to add clear contextual guidance to the Research Outputs tab. Without the contextual guidance, we think there's a risk of unnecessary confusion for the researchers, and this would mean a lot of inquiries for ourselves in support services.
Right.
Very specifically, there's no guidance to explain two key points. The first one is whether the information under this tab is mandatory or optional. And second, when the researchers are expected to provide the information. And just a little bit of context, it's really important because not just our own university policy, but many funders, they require researchers to write the DMP before the project starts. And some researchers won't be able to complete these fields until sometime after the project has started. And in some cases, it might not be until actually near the end of their project.
Yeah.
So we'll get a lot of questions asking if it has to be provided and does it have to be provided before the project starts. And there's another point as well. I expect they would also ask, do the responses under this tab need to be included with the DMP that is sent to funders as part of their grant applications? I think that as it stands, the answer is no, but I think that's all part of the confusion. So I think as a solution, we'd suggest, maybe adding a text box at the top of the tab so that it's the first thing they see and it's really clear. And it could simply explain, first, that completing these fields is optional. And secondly, that it's good practice to add this information before the end of the project. I think we also appreciate that different institutions might want to tailor that guidance to their own local contexts. So perhaps that text box is something that could be customizable locally by each institution. And just one final thought, it was great, hearing about machine actionable DMPs. I just wondered if there's a third point around persuading researchers to record this information. I agree with Mark as well. Researchers hate having to type the same thing in twice into two different places or multiple systems. So I wondered whether, with an eye to the future, maybe there's something around providing a link in the guidance to a larger document externally that just explains the rationale for the feature, a vision for who would use the information, how it would be used, and what the benefits would be. So a little bit of an advocacy opportunity, but the key thing is adding that contextual guidance. Is it mandatory or optional, and when are they expected to provide it?
Yes, that sounds very good. Thank you very much for that. But there's another question I want to ask. I mean, you constantly come to us asking for more intelligent fields and more intelligent statistics. And by you, I mean the org admins. Would this feature be of any benefit to you? Are you likely to, you know, I'm not just asking about the end user here, I'm asking about you. Are you likely to come back and say, oh, I would like an API to see what metadata standards my people are using. I would like an API to see what repositories people are putting their data in. Lena? Lena?
Yes, sorry, I have no camera here on, but
Don't
I would
worry.
definitely like that. I'm currently, we are working on a project where we're trying to take the metadata from the DMPs and use them when publishing data. And what, I mean, this is a project where we're working with different systems, but what we're really not able to do with the DMPonline that we have at my institution, that is exactly this, getting the metadata about the research outputs in a good way. So for us, this would be very useful.
Okay. Oops. Chris, you've gone. Thanks very much, Lena. Chris, you've gone. All right. Okay. Mark, you've raised your hand again.
Yes, I think for output statistics wise, adding features like this could be useful. At the moment, we're currently using a different way, or we're at least developing a different way, because right now we're using the API to export all the DMPs. So basically, we all have all the DMP information and all the questions and answers, and in this way we could generate statistics based on the outputs, JSON files and CSV files that we export. So that's one way we're thinking of creating statistics, but also overviews, which would be necessary from a privacy perspective for a general register, because DMPonline is one of the tools that we're very closely looking at as the major tool to generate an overview of the research involving sensitive data, because we're legally bound to have such a register.
Yes, and I thought the research outputs field would perhaps help with that. Or perhaps get that information and those statistics quite easily without you having to develop any kind of customized local, you know, solution of your own. Am I right?
But at the moment, we're still looking at something like this, but it's a long way away. We haven't got a final solution yet. It's also a lengthy process to even get all the people on the board of the university and the legal people in the right direction to even consider using DMPonline as the basis of a register for research on sensitive data. So at the moment, that's what we're thinking about. But if the DMPonline tool could be somehow more tailored towards generating lists or overviews of DMPs involving sensitive data, that would definitely be a help, I think.
So when you say overviews, sorry, we've gone a bit over time. So when you say overviews, and that's why we're introducing this research outputs feature in a way, just to say, by the way, this plan contains sensitive data. This plan contains potentially private data, and you can identify people.
Yeah, in a way that makes it more manageable, maybe from let's say a development perspective. But still, the information within the DMPs also is needed, because we're including specific questions based on our legal system as well as the GDPR.
Right.
And that means more detailed than just the basic fact of it be involving sensitive research.
Yes, we'll look into that, because we can't produce, how can I put it? We can't produce a solution for every university. We just have to, you know, whereas we go and scrape templates for this kind of information, we have to produce something that it's applicable to everybody, which is why we're looking into a solution like research outputs and its machine actionable fields. Do any of my developers want to say anything about this? Any answers to Mark's question? Have I addressed this?
Yes, because I think we haven't really, right now we're just trying to get as much feedback as possible from everyone. There are some really good feedback present in the chat as well. So I'm hoping that together with all of this, we can come up with a solution. But I think, Diana, you're right, that some of the more general changes can possibly be inserted, like with the text box and all of that. That was a good idea, because we do need more of an explanation. But more minute changes, I think we need to first discuss it with the roadmap team, if that's okay.
Okay, I see one question from Joachim, which is quite good in the chat. Is there some coordination possible or possible inference between repositories selected and metadata standards? Joachim, do you want to make yourself live and see what you mean?
Okay. I'm asking because as we have made our own local template, we have with tick boxes for these questions, and that's why I think this research outputs feature is a good thing, because it's going in the same direction. But when we ask about repositories and we give a number of choices, options, then we have for the metadata standards one box that says metadata created from the repository in the previous question, because since we know those repositories and which metadata standards are possible to use from there. So this is a way of making it easier for the researcher to choose also. And I mean, if you even have domain-specific repositories in the possible selection, they can surely provide also domain-specific metadata. So I mean, well, the interest is to make it as easy as possible for the researcher to fill it out, while we get all the information we need to handle it. And I think that it's my experience, some researchers don't even know what we mean by metadata, and even less a metadata standard. What's that? So I mean, that would be a way of making it easier for the research.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I get the impression that most of you are not saying no to this feature if we release it with Chris's suggestions, for example, making it clear when it's to be filled in, when it's that is not mandatory. Am I getting the right mood here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, at least.
Okay, so we have to go and fix those usability issues, including adding more more help on screen tooltips and more explanation for users. Who would like a meeting where we can go and discuss this a bit more? I mean, if you don't have any strong views about this, you can say, yeah, as long as we release it with Chris's options, that's fine. Who would like to be more involved in a discussion about perfecting this, right, before it goes live. I can see Chris is very involved, Mark, Alina. Perhaps we can arrange a meeting, not ASAP, because nobody will have time. Possibly most of you wouldn't even have time before the Christmas break. Early in the new year. Joachim?
Probably all right, but I think the main thing would also be involving a couple of researchers to get their views, to know in practice how they view it, because we're mainly supporters, I think, and we may have our own angle on those topics, but the researchers might come up with different views than we expect.
Yeah, that's part of the usability testing we're planning to do anyway, so they can see how they can use this feature and what they understand from it. So we're going to do that anyway and ask them. But is it okay if Mark, Joachim, Lina, Chris, and who else want to join? I mean, I'll send this information out following the meeting, and if you want to join a meeting where we can sit down and discuss this a bit more before the feature goes live. I personally think it's useful. It's a useful feature, and since I haven't heard any strong opposition, I understand what the problems are, might be. I suggest that we actually do go and release it in the new year. If you have any strong opposition to it, please say so now. I don't want to see it on DMPonline ever.
I think it's a good idea, but as long as it's not mandatory, it's certainly not in the beginning. It's fine. We can just get started with it, I think.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. It's 12:10. Thank you so much for your input. If you have questions that you want to any other questions that you want to ask, I'm happy to stay here, because a lot of the delays were caused by me not being able to handle my screens and my presentations, and my screens freezing. So do you want to ask additional questions? I'm staying here. Not just about these particular topics, other questions? No? Well, in that case, nice to see you all. I'll email you the slides, and the recordings will be put online. And thank you very much for setting up, and thank you so much for the inputs. Thanks, Maria.